Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of 50 to 70 Meaningful Conversations Between Men. I'm Darius and I'm here with my co-host, Peter Cowan. Peter, good to see you.
Delight. Always a delight to be here with you, Darius, and spend time with our audience and share these conversations.
Conversations that you and I have had once, twice, sometimes
many times.
Many times. And today's one is of a particular interest to, I think, both of us, that being purpose and how to mindfully and meaningfully infuse purpose to create fulfilling lives for men.
Yes. A man without purpose is challenged, I believe. Purpose provides guidance. It provides direction on the things that I have created. Men create, humans create. It's purpose that drives that energy. And so we're going to talk about that today and how to perhaps consider purpose in living a meaningful and fulfilled life, and just our own experiences with it and what we might suggest to the audience that might be helpful to them.
Yeah. So what is purpose? How do you find purpose? The impact of purpose. How does purpose evolve are the key themes that I think over the next half hour we're going to be winding through and sharing our own personal experiences and how we got there.
Yeah.
So let's start off with a basic question. I'm sure we have people in the audience listening right now and saying, purpose. What are these two guys talking about? So how would we define purpose, Peter, for someone naive or someone new to the construct?
It's in its most basic, it's why you do the things you do in your life. What is your reason or purpose? I use the term purpose to better describe that you and I, most of us, we're in this continuous process of creation, of building, of growing.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the time it's with an intentionality. And that intentionality has a purpose behind it. You have a reason or a purpose for creating or working on something. But most of the time, I would say that purpose is instilled, embedded in us. It's not independently arrived at. And sometimes we have a passion for it. Sometimes we don't. Sometimes we just are on autopilot, engaging in what we believe or think is a purposeful activity. And when I say purpose, again, it's overlapping with the reason for engaging, creating, living. And here we're talking about maybe sharing a different view of what engaging in a life that's fulfilling, in a life that's purposeful, has a different kind of orientation, a different way.
So it's that deep sense of direction, that guiding force that gives meaning to our actions and to our decisions.
Yes, exactly.
So how do you find your purpose?
I believe you don't find your purpose without a passion for what you're doing or what you're creating. Purpose should lead to meaningful endeavor and a sense of fulfillment in your life. And if you're not passionate about what you're doing, then perhaps, and this is what the audience might take a look at, perhaps you're not pursuing something that's purposeful or your purpose. You're just going through the motions, maybe.
Mm-hmm. So, agreed, there has to be an element of passion, but it seems like there's more than just passion. There has to be something that brings you joy while you are doing it. There has to be something that allows us to have that sense of fulfillment and accomplishment, going back to what you were raising about, the point you were raising about constantly growing and building. So it seems like it's all of those things plus whatever your intuition is telling you as well, because that little voice in the back of your head or your gut feeling, I think is important in finding what your purpose in life is.
I, I think we should differentiate for our audience purpose from effort,
Agreed.
exertion,
Mm-hmm.
because I spent a great deal of my life working in the work environment and believed that that was purposeful. Um, from what I had learned, the purpose was to make money
Mm-hmm.
and grow in my career. So there was growth to that. And there was also remuneration, which I can't deny was pleasing and I guess satisfying isn't the right word, but it satisfied what I understood were the requirements of my adulthood and a fatherhood and
Mm-hmm.
being a head of a family. But was it the work itself, the endeavor, the activity, the creation? Was it purposeful? I I believe I arrived at that a little bit later on, where the focus wasn't on what I had learned, what I had been conditioned to think was the reason for living
Mm-hmm.
in our modern culture, which is to attain a certain wealth, a certain status. And maybe purpose is much more than that. And that's what I've learned as I've aged. And it's what I hope to share today.
Yeah, it reminds me of the old Socrates quote: "The unexamined life is not worth living."
Yeah.
So if I think about finding my purpose, completely agree with everything you're saying. Purpose and effort are not hand in hand. You can exert an inordinate amount of effort, but if it's not in alignment with your purpose, you will know it, you will feel it. The results will be telling you that you're not doing what you need to do. How I found mine was everything we did, plus I would watch my actions and see which actions felt like they were in harmony with what I was supposed to be doing versus which actions felt foreign and unnatural. The second thing I did is I started reading voraciously. You give me a book, I'll read it.
Mm,
And I've learned that the book finds you when you're ready for the message
so
within the
true.
book.
So true.
Right? I'll have a book that sits on my desktop for 3 years, and then one day I'll just pick it up and it'll be devoured in 2 days.
Yeah.
And then the last thing is just speaking with people. And I always tell my sons the difference between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge is figuring it out yourself.
Yeah.
Wisdom is learning it from somebody else so you don't have to learn it the hard way. And you take all of those factors and you listen to what's being said, and you'll figure out what your purpose is.
Yeah. What did you mean when you said having the sense of what feels foreign versus what feels natural?
Yeah, I can give you an example. I was running a consulting company, by all intentions, very successful. And I was writing a statement of work. It was a big project. I had no desire to write that statement of work. None. And that was the sign. All right, you've done this for 20 years. You're done.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's orchestrate an outcome and get out of this.
Understood. But how does that, or does it relate to whether you had lost your passion for what you were doing? And would you have said to yourself, well, yeah, I'm leading a very purposeful life right now. I have this consultancy firm. I'm very successful. Everybody thinks I'm successful. I'm achieving great goals. I'm making good money. So what was the difference from that moment where it became foreign and
Yeah,
years
that's a good
prior?
question. I think purpose requires, I think you were the one who said this, the deep and authentic connection to something greater than yourself. And so the example you shared about being a successful corporate executive, being well compensated, just didn't feel right. Same thing. It just didn't feel like that's what I had meant to do. I was very good at what I did for 20 years. I helped launch dozens, if not hundreds, of different biopharma medicines. Then I started looking at the broader problems and saying, well, I'm trying to fix symptom by symptom here. but not actually addressing the root of some of these issues. And the skills I've learned have been wonderful. They're transferable. Time for you to move on.
Were you passionate?
About what?
The development of all these prescriptions and pharmaceutical remedies that,
Some cases, yeah, if the drug was good.
yeah.
And if it represented a significant advance on an unmet need. Other times it was a drug that was marginally differentiated, means it was just a little bit better, if at all, and I had to find ways to make it better. And then my passion switched to be less about the drugs and more about the people that I was coaching and mentoring and watching their careers prosper either with me or elsewhere. So the purpose had changed from, launching these medicines, building a consulting company, to helping people that were working with me and my clients.
So I'm having this conversation with you because there may be people in the audience who are in the midst of their career or in that mid career, or even maybe approaching retirement. And I don't believe either one of us want them to feel like they haven't been serving a
Correct.
purpose. You said something greater than yourself, and maybe there are elements in many jobs that people are performing.
I think we have to be careful of tying purpose directly to jobs. Because yes, your job is a big part of what you do because you're spending 40, 50 hours a week there. However, there's still a lot of other hours. And if your purpose is to coach, your purpose is to practice peace, your purpose is to help develop the next generation, you can do that at your job. You can do that in community-based activities. You can do that with your friends and family. There's lots of other ways for you to authentically live your purpose other than in your work setting. So I think we have to expand our construct. It's not just about what you're doing for work. And if you're in a job where you have to stay in it and you know you have to stay in it, but your purpose is slightly left of that job, well, then find ways to infuse your purpose into your job and find ways to infuse your purpose into other aspects of your life.
Okay, let's talk about that, because other purposes in your life, perhaps a greater extension beyond just your needs or your accomplishments, maybe affecting humanity, affecting your community, like you just said.
Mm-hmm.
How, when you got to midlife, how did you start unraveling what your purpose might look like and how it might be more fulfilling than what you had been engaging in, and more impactful with perhaps people in your community or in the world? What resonated for you?
You're talking about how did I find my purpose?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, it was the summer of COVID. I'm sitting on a beach and a book calls to me. I'm like, I'm going to read this book this week. I had a week off. The book was Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, one that I know you're familiar with. It's one of those foundational, groundbreaking books that you just read and it changes your perspective. And for those unfamiliar with the construct, he was a Holocaust survivor who did a study as to why some people survived and why others didn't. And obviously he accounted for there's some randomality in there.
Yes.
Right? There's some things that were beyond his control. But then what he learned is those people that had a reason to live, that had purpose, that had that passion, were more likely to survive that horrific experience. So I read that and it started me thinking, what is my purpose? And my purpose, I don't know how everyone finds it. I can tell you how I found mine. Mine just basically came to me and said, all right, your purpose is to do good. Are we going to agree with this? And I said, yeah, this seems like an honorable purpose. Like anything that's simple, it becomes really complex pretty fast.
Yes.
Do good. Well, good is a very subjective nature.
Yes, it is.
Who am I doing good for? What is actually good? Where is the good being deployed? How do I do good for myself? What if somebody needs me, but I don't have the energy to be able to deploy there? So it became a wonderful learning experience in how to live out that purpose. And this is an outcome of that, right? The ethos of our show is really simple. If we can help just one person,
Yes.
if one person listens to this episode on purpose and walks away and says, I'm going to read Victor's book, I'm going to live my life in line with my purpose, which is be kind, be compassionate, be loving, be the best parent I possibly can. Whatever that call is inside of you that you know it, then we've done our job.
Yeah. Do you find, and I'm sorry for asking all these questions, you finding more satisfaction, more fulfillment, more vitality in your life?
What I find when I'm living in flow is that things happen easily.
Yes. Synchronicity.
It just connects. It's like doors open that you hadn't even seen before. When you are not living in your flow, it's like pushing, it's like syphilis or
Mm-hmm.
syphilis pushing the pebble, the
The rock.
rock up the hill, gets to the top, only to watch it fall back down and gets to do it all over again. It's like the universe is trying to point you in a different direction.
Yes.
And to your point about effort, you can put all the effort you want in. You can double your efforts, you can triple your efforts. It's not going to work. To answer your question about vitality, night and day.
Yes, I would agree. My experience has been that I reached a point where I was in search of more than my corporate pursuits and purpose, and I was looking for something bigger than myself to lend my efforts to. And I was working at the time with American Express, and this initiative came up on Miami Beach where they were looking to open the door to African American ownership in resort hotel business because there wasn't any. And I happened to be in a place where I thought it was time for me to lend my efforts, my skills to try to move this social justice initiative forward and put together a group. And it eventually wound up in the construction, the building of a hotel. It was African American owned. The group I put together, we were a small piece of it. We had our interest diluted. That's a long story. I don't want to get into a whole lot. But the social justice initiative was accomplished. It felt purposeful to me.
Mm-hmm.
More important, it opened the door of fulfillment and satisfaction and led me to a path that wasn't obvious initially. As a matter of fact, I thought I had failed because we weren't principal owners. I wasn't the one in control. Our group wasn't in control. So I had gone down a wrong path and I hadn't really affected anybody except for myself and my family adversely. At least that's what I thought at the time.
Yeah.
But years later, the effects of just moving in the direction of more purpose without having a clear awareness of it has been that you impact others. And it's now not uncommon for minority ownership of resort hotels across the country. There's an organization that was formed out of it of African American hotel or minority hotel ownership. I was at a function with my wife and an executive in her company who was African American said, "Yeah, your group opened the eyes and the doors that led to others saying, oh, this can be accomplished in Miami. Well, maybe we can do it here." And so I was fortunate to get feedback on how the pursuits of purpose greater than yourself sometimes doesn't benefit you, but it does achieve a benefit for the greater humanity or just a greater community. And that can be quite fulfilling, even though it's not the same kind of fulfillment that maybe work and jobs and money. And I share that because the first instance would have led me to believe that purpose, passionate pursuit of purpose can be quite adverse, but maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe the realization comes down the road because eventually it leads me to where I'm engaged in mindfulness and I'm engaged in meditation, and my own personal evolution is significance, and my fulfillment, sense of fulfillment, my peace now is very different. And so I would say the pursuit of purpose can't always be linear to what you've been doing. It leave space for what might evolve in synchronicity. Like you said, things coming to you and informing you, oh, this is perhaps a way for you.
Yeah, so I think about purpose. People who have that sense of purpose that I've seen in my life, they handle stress better. They're more resilient. They're more motivated, and things seem to happen the way they're meant to happen. It's like the old country song by Garth Brooks. Sometimes God's greatest gifts are unanswered prayers.
Mm.
We think we want X, but that's not the path that we need to go on. And we need to experience a quote unquote failure, which is obviously a judgment in how it's perceived. It's just an event that has happened.
That's true.
It's not a failure. It's an event. It's not a success. It's an event to move forward. Let me ask you a question. Your purpose doesn't say consistent throughout your life. You've went through retirement. Let's talk about purpose at retirement, because many of our audience is going to be in that range where they're thinking about transitioning. Can you share some thoughts on that one?
I'll share that there was a realization I came to that a purpose that serves a greater good, that extends beyond just your own personal desires, contributes to an incredible clarity and focus, a certain vitality for life, and maybe even a greater intentionality to live your life with vitality and a sense of service that goes beyond yourself and beyond your family, let's say. And it engenders maybe greater self-care because now you have a purpose greater than yourself to serve. But you can't serve that unless you are practicing self-care of yourself. And so it's opened up doors that I could not have imagined if I had continued to follow my understanding of what retirement should look like and what your purpose might be at that point in time. And this is not a judgment on anybody who has chosen differently. I just have witnessed, experienced how having a purpose that serves others can be so invigorating, so create so much vitality for life and the essence of life. And I hope to share that. I think we are sharing it here with this episode and with what we're trying to do with 50 to 70 and age differently.
So purpose, to summarize what you just said, I think it's really important. Purpose helps you personally, and it helps you better serve those around you.
Yeah.
And knowing what that is also allows you, I look at it like an engine and a navigation system all in one. It motivates you to get going and also tells you when you are doing activities, behaviors, good words, good thoughts, good deeds in alignment with your purpose versus when you need to course correct and get back in alignment.
Yes.
So for those that have retired, how do they stay sharp? How do they find that purpose as they're going through this major transition? Anything different from what we've talked about in the throughout the episode already?
It's just how I would suggest is being mindful of and aware of their effect, the effect of their skills, their talent, the wisdom that decades have created for them, decades of experiences for most, if not all, men, women, generated wisdom, and that wisdom can serve others. And so approaching retirement, maybe it's not just about your own self-care and looking out for yourself. Maybe it's trying to figure out how and what you might contribute from your wisdom, from your abilities to serve humanity. And that doesn't have to be a regal or large.
It could be your child. It could be your neighbor, it could be your community,
Thank you.
it could be anything.
Thank you.
If I think about those that are still in the workforce, my advice is simple. Find your purpose, live your purpose. And there's always that moment where you might have to take a scary jump, but if it's in alignment with your purpose, odds are it's going to work out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? But don't do what I did and sacrifice yourself physically for the sake of something, sake of a company. That wasn't in alignment with my purpose.
Although, not to debate this with you, but that may be part of the odyssey, right?
It probably is.
Part of the process of getting to serving your true purpose may be challenges like that. And, you mentioned it earlier, failures that look bad at that moment. As I related about my experience with Miami Beach, it looks horrendous, but yet it leads to where here I am with you, where I need to be. Exactly.
Instead of me sitting at your hotel watching you walk by, running the big corporate empire, and me sitting on the beach, missing each other. One last question before we get to close, and that's something you mentioned earlier. Passion. You led with passion, and I wove a number of factors around it. But let's go back to passion and finding your passion at this, 50 to 70 age mark. Any guidance, any advice, any thoughts on that one?
Yes. It would be direct your efforts to what you feel helps you evolve and continue to grow as a human being, being. And so that encompasses so much of what we've covered in several episodes about being. It's not limited. It's an evolution. It's a process. Yeah. It's a continuous growth. And so a purpose that serves that makes it easier to identify that purpose. No?
Yeah. So our call to action, Peter.
Our call to action is identify what you're passionate about, whether it's personal or it's your family, could be your children, or if it's your community, or maybe it's a social justice initiative, or maybe it's just something that you would like to see changed, done differently by humanity. And remember, even a small pebble creates a ripple in the lake.
Yeah, I would challenge for those who are feeling a little more adventurous to build on what Peter said and actually write what you think your purpose is on a piece of paper. Write it down, not just in your head, put it down. Put it away for a week, 2 weeks. Pull it out and see how it resonates, see if it feels good. And then once you know your purpose, then the next step becomes obvious. Am I living my life in alignment, or how can I better live my life in alignment with this purpose?
Yeah, I love it.
So I got a poem for us to close off.
Can't wait.
And it's by Sri Chinmoy. Life is given to each human being for a very special purpose. This secret each human being must discover for himself. And I think purpose is a huge part of that journey.
It is. It is. I'm glad we had a chance to talk about this. And I hope, again, we hope one person out there in the audience was positively affected by this, or maybe affected in a way where it appears negative today, but looks and becomes positive later.
Get somebody thinking. Thank you, everyone, for listening. As always, the podcast will be up on agedifferently.com as well. Go there, leave us your feedback. And for this one, if you're so inclined to share, write down the purpose that you've come up with. We'd love to hear.
We'd love to hear that.
And provide feedback. And it's the ripple analogy is huge.
Yeah.
And the purpose amplifies the magnitude of those ripples.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Darius. Thanks to our audience again. for sharing this with us. Take care.
Wonderful.